On a chilly evening in the vibrant heart of Ridgewood, the city pulsed with its usual rhythm of life. The streets glistened under a soft drizzle, reflecting the warm glow of streetlights and bustling storefronts. Amid this urban symphony stood the Roselle, a haven of elegance and refinement, where the city's elite gathered to savor life's finer moments. Inside the restaurant, tucked away in his customary corner, Logan Carter sat in quiet contemplation. His imposing figure was softened by the years, his silver-streaked hair and sharp features hinting at a life of both triumph and sorrow. To the world, Logan was a towering symbol of success, a man who had built an empire from the ground up. Yet, beneath the polished veneer, his heart carried a grief as enduring as it was invisible. 20 long years had passed since Amelia, his beloved wife, had disappeared without explanation. The void she left behind had become a silent undercurrent to his every accomplishment, a wound that even the passage of decades couldn't close. Tonight, as the rain traced delicate patterns against the glass walls, Logan found himself drifting into old memories, their weight heavier than usual. Unbeknownst to him, this evening would mark the beginning of a journey that would shatter the boundaries between past and present. A single encounter was about to rewrite the story he thought he knew, intertwining his life with an unexpected presence that would awaken buried questions and unearth forgotten truths. The rain continued its gentle descent, each drop an echo of time slipping away, as fate began to set the stage for a reunion that was both impossible and inevitable. The soft murmur of conversations and the melodic clinking of glasses filled the air at the Roselle, yet Logan Carter heard none of it. His attention was anchored to a waitress moving gracefully between tables, her every step precise and poised. There was something familiar, achingly familiar, about her. Her hazel eyes, the way her smile barely touched the corners of her lips, even the delicate tilt of her head. For a moment, Logan questioned whether his weary mind was conjuring a cruel illusion, a specter of the past. He clenched his hands together, his wedding ring, untouched since Amelia vanished, catching the dim light of the chandelier. The resemblance was undeniable. This young woman bore an uncanny likeness to Amelia as she had appeared decades ago, radiant and full of life. Logan's heart raced, and he felt the familiar pang of loss he had carried for so many years. Could it be a coincidence? Or was this something more? Something that defied reason? Summoning his courage, Logan gestured to Daniel, the maitre d', a man who had loyally served at the Roselle for years. "Daniel," Logan said, his voice low but tinged with urgency. "The young waitress over there. Who is she?" Daniel followed Logan's gaze, his professional demeanor softening into a smile. "Ah, you must mean Claire Emerson. She's new, just joined a few months ago. Very hardworking, quite the perfectionist. If I recall correctly, she mentioned she's from Hartford, looking to start fresh." Logan's breath hitched at the mention of Hartford. It was Amelia's hometown, a place Logan had avoided since her disappearance. He struggled to maintain his composure, masking the storm of emotions swirling within him. "Send her to my table," he said firmly, his gaze never leaving Claire. Moments later, Claire approached. Her uniform was crisp, her expression polite yet inquisitive. "Good evening, sir," she said, her voice carrying a softness that made Logan's chest tighten. "Is there something I can assist you with?" For a moment, Logan couldn't respond. Her voice, it carried the same warmth, the same cadence Amelia's had. His throat felt dry as he forced himself to speak. "Please, have a seat," he said, gesturing to the chair across from him. "I promise I won't keep you long." Claire hesitated, her eyes flickering to Daniel, who gave her a reassuring nod from across the room. With practiced grace, she sat down, folding her hands neatly in her lap. "Is everything all right, sir?" she asked, her tone tinged with concern. Logan studied her face closely, noting every detail, the delicate arch of her brows, the faint dimple in her left cheek, and the subtle birthmark behind her ear. The resemblance wasn't just uncanny, it was unnerving. He felt as though he were staring at a piece of his past brought back to life. "You remind me of someone I once knew," Logan began, his voice steady but laced with emotion. "Someone very important to me. May I ask, where did you grow up?" Claire's brows knitted slightly, but she answered with ease. I grew up in Hartford. I don't know much about my parents. They left me at an orphanage when I was a baby. Logan felt as though the ground had shifted beneath him. The pieces of her story, Hartford, the orphanage, aligned too perfectly with the unresolved questions that had haunted him for years. His hands trembled slightly as he pressed further. Do you know anything about them? Anything at all? Claire shook her head, her expression softening. Not much, sir. Just that I was found wrapped in a blue blanket with the initials AC embroidered on it. That's all I've ever had. Logan's breath hitched. AC, Amelia Carter. The initials were a cold confirmation, a clue he hadn't dared to dream of. His mind raced, connecting fragments of the past with the present. Could it truly be possible? Could Claire be the daughter Amelia had been carrying when she disappeared? Suppressing the emotions threatening to overwhelm him, Logan leaned forward, his voice dropping to a near whisper. Claire, I believe there's more to your story than you realize. And if you're willing, I'd like to help you uncover it. Claire hesitated, her guarded demeanor cracking slightly under Logan's sincerity. I'm not sure what you mean, she said cautiously. Why would someone like you be interested in my story? Logan offered a faint smile, his gaze unwavering. Sometimes life presents us with connections we can't ignore. I feel there's something significant about you, something that ties us together in ways neither of us can yet understand. Claire studied him for a moment, her hazel eyes searching his face for any sign of deceit. Finding none, she nodded slowly. All right, but I'm not sure how much help I can be. My past is mostly a mystery to me. Logan's determination solidified. He needed answers, and he needed them quickly. That evening, he contacted Ethan Adams, his trusted private investigator. Ethan, Logan said, his voice steady but urgent. I need you to look into a young woman named Claire Emerson. She works at the Roselle and grew up in an orphanage in Hartford. Find out everything you can about her origins. Consider it done, Ethan replied without hesitation, accustomed to Logan's high-stakes requests. In the days that followed, Logan found himself watching Claire from a distance during his visits to the Roselle. Her every movement, her subtle gestures, even the way she carried herself reminded him of Amelia. Yet, beyond the physical resemblance, there was something deeper, a quiet strength, a resilience born of struggle that mirrored the woman he had loved and lost. As the investigation progressed, Logan took a bold step. He offered Claire a position as his personal assistant, explaining that her diligence and adaptability were qualities he admired. Though hesitant at first, Claire accepted, drawn by the opportunity to leave her waitressing days behind. Her first day at Caldwell Enterprises was one of excitement and trepidation. Logan personally welcomed her, guiding her through the towering glass building. This will be your workspace, he said, opening the door to a sunlit office adjacent to his own. On the desk sat a single orchid, its delicate petals a quiet homage to Amelia's favorite flower. Claire's eyes lingered on the orchid, her expression distant. It's beautiful, she murmured. It reminds me of something I can't quite place. Logan felt his chest tighten. Orchids require care and patience to bloom, he said softly, echoing Amelia's words from years past. Just like people. As the days turned into weeks, Claire's presence began to transform the office. Her fresh ideas and natural charisma brought new energy to the team, but it was during shared coffee breaks and quiet conversations with Logan that the true connection between them began to emerge. She spoke of her struggles growing up in the orphanage, her longing to understand her origins, and her dreams for the future. Logan, in turn, shared fragments of his life with Amelia, careful not to overwhelm her with the weight of his suspicions. One evening, as the city lights glittered through the office windows, Logan approached Claire with a leather-bound journal. This belonged to someone significant to me, he said, handing it to her. I believe it might hold answers for both of us. Claire accepted the journal with curiosity and a hint of apprehension. As she flipped through its pages, her eyes widened at an entry that described a blue blanket with embroidered initials. Her voice trembled as she looked up at Logan. Who was she? She whispered. Logan's expression softened, the weight of years of unanswered questions pressing down on him. She was my wife, he said quietly. And, I believe your mother. The air in the room grew heavy with the enormity of his words. Claire clutched the journal to her chest, her mind racing with questions. For the first time, she felt the fragile threads of her past beginning to weave into something whole. Together, Logan and Claire had taken the first steps on a journey that would challenge everything they thought they knew. A journey where the past and present collided in a quest for truth, closure, and an unbreakable bond. The revelation left Claire reeling, her mind flooded with questions and emotions she could barely process. She clutched the leather-bound journal to her chest, her heart pounding as fragments of her identity began to take shape. Logan watched her carefully, his own emotions tightly controlled. He knew this moment marked the beginning of a journey that would reshape both their lives. "Claire," Logan said gently, breaking the silence, "I know this is a lot to take in. Believe me, I've spent years searching for answers, and I never imagined I'd find them like this. But if you're willing, I want to help you uncover the truth about your past, about your mother, and about what happened to her." Claire hesitated, her eyes searching Logan's face for any trace of doubt or insincerity. All she saw was a man grappling with the weight of his own grief and hope. Slowly, she nodded. "I want to know," she said softly. "I've spent my whole life wondering where I came from. If you have answers, I'm ready to hear them." Logan's relief was palpable, but he knew this was only the beginning. He placed a comforting hand on Claire's shoulder. "We'll take it one step at a time," he promised. "There's no rush." Over the following days, Logan worked tirelessly to piece together the threads of Claire's story. He revisited old files and photographs, combed through Amelia's letters, and contacted Ethan Adams for updates on the investigation. Meanwhile, Claire immersed herself in the journal, poring over Amelia's entries in search of anything that might provide clarity. One afternoon, as they sat in Logan's study, Claire came across a passage that made her pause. "Look at this," she said, pointing to a page. Her voice trembled with excitement. She mentioned someone named David, her brother. She wrote that he was involved in something shady and that she planned to confront him right before she disappeared. Logan's expression darkened at the name. "David Carter," he said, his tone sharp. "My brother. I always suspected he knew more about Amelia's disappearance than he let on, but I could never prove it. If she confronted him about something, it could explain why she vanished." Claire's eyes widened. "Do you think he could have hurt her?" Logan hesitated, his jaw tightening. "I don't want to believe it," he admitted. "But if he had something to hide, it's possible he felt desperate enough to take drastic measures. I need to confront him." Claire's hand rested lightly on Logan's arm. "We'll do it together," she said firmly. "If he knows the truth, he needs to face it." The next day, Logan arranged a meeting with David at the Caldwell family estate, a sprawling mansion where David had lived since Amelia's disappearance. As they approached the grand entryway, Claire's grip tightened on the leather-bound journal, her nerves evident in her every step. Logan placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Stay close," he said quietly. David greeted them with his usual air of arrogance, but his confident facade faltered when his gaze landed on Claire. His eyes widened, and for a fleeting moment, fear flashed across his face. "Who is this?" he demanded, his voice sharp. "This," Logan replied, his tone icy, "is Claire, Amelia's daughter." "My daughter." David's face turned ashen, his composure slipping. "That's impossible," he stammered, his gaze darting between them. Logan stepped closer, his presence commanding. "We have proof," he said, his voice steady. "Claire found Amelia's journal, and now we know about your dealings with her before she disappeared. It's time you told us the truth." David's hands clenched at his sides, his usual bravado replaced by palpable tension. "You don't know what you're talking about," he said, his voice wavering. "Amelia left of her own accord. I had nothing to do with it." Claire stepped forward, her voice steady despite the storm raging within her. "I deserve to know the truth," she said, her hazel eyes piercing. "If you cared about her, even a little, you'll tell us what happened." David's resolve seemed to crumble under her piercing gaze. He sank into a chair, his shoulders slumping as he heaved a heavy sigh. "Fine," he muttered. "I'll tell you everything." David's confession came slowly, each word dragging the weight of 2 decades of secrecy. Amelia found out I was embezzling from the family business, he began, his voice barely audible. She threatened to expose me unless I came clean. I begged her to keep quiet, to give me time to fix everything, but she wouldn't listen. She said she had to protect the family. Logan's fists clenched, his knuckles white with restrained anger. "So you made her disappear?" he demanded, his voice trembling with fury. David shook his head quickly, his face pale. "No, I didn't hurt her. I convinced her to leave for a while, to let things calm down. I arranged for her to stay in a safe house outside the city. I thought it would buy me time." Claire's voice cut through the tension. "But she never came back," she said, her tone accusatory. "Why?" David hesitated, his gaze dropping to the floor. "Something went wrong," he admitted. "I don't know what happened. One day, she just vanished. I thought she'd left on her own." Logan's anger boiled over. "You let me believe she abandoned me. You let me grieve for 20 years while you hid the truth." David flinched at the venom in Logan's voice. "I didn't know what else to do," he muttered. "I was scared. If the truth came out, it would have ruined everything." Claire's eyes narrowed, her hands gripping the journal tightly. "Where is this safe house?" she demanded. "If she disappeared from there, we need to start looking." Reluctantly, David scribbled the address on a piece of paper and handed it to Logan. "That's all I know," he said quietly. "I swear." Logan pocketed the paper, his expression unreadable. "If you're lying," he said coldly, "I'll make sure you pay for it." As they left the estate, Claire glanced at Logan, her resolve hardening. "We'll find her," she said with quiet determination. "Whatever it takes." Logan nodded, his eyes fixed on the horizon. "We will," he said firmly. "And when we do, we'll make sure the truth finally comes to light." The safe house loomed in their minds like a distant beacon, holding the answers they had sought for so long. Though their path was fraught with uncertainty, Logan and Claire were united in their mission. For the first time in years, the possibility of closure felt within reach. Together, they would uncover the truth about Amelia and reclaim the family they had lost. The journey to uncover the truth about Amelia had shifted something profound in Logan and Claire. Their shared determination to find answers had built a fragile but undeniable bond. Yet, even as they worked together, the lingering question of their biological connection weighed heavily on them. Logan, ever pragmatic, knew there was one way to remove any doubt. "We need to take a DNA test," Logan said one evening as they sat in his study. The journal lay open between them, its pages bearing the weight of a story that was still incomplete. Claire hesitated, her hands folded in her lap. "Do you think it's really necessary?" she asked quietly. "I feel connected to you already. Isn't that enough?" Logan's expression softened. "It's not about what we feel, Claire. It's about certainty. If we're going to confront the truth about your mother, we need to know without a shadow of a doubt that you are her daughter and my daughter. It's a formality, but it's an important one." Claire nodded slowly, understanding his reasoning even as a knot formed in her stomach. "All right," she said. "Let's do it." The following morning, Logan arranged for the test at one of the city's most reputable laboratories. Claire accompanied him, her nervousness evident in the way she fidgeted with the strap of her bag. Logan placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder as they entered the pristine facility. "Whatever the results say," he told her, "you're already a part of my life. That won't change." The test itself was quick, but the wait for the results felt interminable. During those days, Logan buried himself in the investigation, combing through old financial records, contacting former investigators, and even revisiting Amelia's letters in search of overlooked clues. Claire, meanwhile, found herself drawn deeper into the journal, piecing together fragments of Amelia's life and her own origins. Finally, the day arrived. Logan and Claire sat together in his office, the envelope resting between them like a silent arbiter of fate. Claire reached for it, her hands trembling slightly, but Logan stopped her with a gentle touch. "We'll open it together," he said, his voice steady but tinged with emotion. With a deep breath, Claire tore open the envelope and unfolded the paper inside. Her eyes scanned the words, her heart pounding as she reached the conclusion. 99.99% probability of paternity. It's true, she whispered, her voice trembling. You're my father. Logan's breath caught, his eyes misting with emotion. He reached out and enveloped her in a hug. His voice choked. I've waited so long, he said. You have no idea how much this means to me. For a moment, the weight of their shared grief and unanswered questions lifted, replaced by a fragile but undeniable joy. Yet, even as they celebrated the confirmation of their bond, the shadow of Amelia's disappearance loomed large. There were still too many questions left unanswered, and the answers lay waiting in the safe house. The address David had provided led Logan and Claire to a secluded area on the outskirts of Hartford. The safe house was a modest colonial-style home, its white paint weathered and peeling under the weight of 2 decades of neglect. Overgrown vines wrapped around the porch, and the air was thick with the scent of damp earth and decaying wood. The house seemed frozen in time, its silence almost oppressive. This is it, Logan murmured as he parked the car. He glanced at Claire, who stared at the house with wide eyes, her hands gripping the leather-bound journal tightly. Are you ready? Claire nodded, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. I've been waiting my whole life to know what happened to her. The front door creaked as Logan pushed it open, revealing a dim interior layered with dust and cobwebs. The air was heavy, carrying the faint scent of mildew and abandonment. As they stepped inside, their footsteps echoed in the stillness, each creak of the floorboards a reminder of the years that had passed. The living room was sparse but filled with signs of a life interrupted. A toppled chair, a single shoe lying askew by the doorway, an old scarf draped over a sofa. Claire picked up the scarf, her heart pounding as she recognized its vibrant teal color. This was hers, she whispered. I'm sure of it. Logan placed a hand on her shoulder, his expression somber. Let's keep looking, he said. There might be more here. Their search led them through the small house, each room revealing more traces of Amelia's presence. In the bedroom, Claire found a photograph on a nightstand, a smiling, pregnant woman standing in front of a garden. It's her, she said, her voice thick with emotion. It's my mother. Logan took the photograph, his hands trembling as he studied Amelia's face. She was here, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. She was so close. In the corner of the bedroom, they discovered a small wooden chest. Inside were letters addressed to Logan, their ink faded but still legible. Claire carefully unfolded one and began to read aloud, her voice breaking with every word. Logan, I don't know how much longer I can stay hidden. David's threats are growing worse, and I fear for our child and myself. But I can't run forever. I need to protect our family, no matter the cost. Tears streamed down Claire's face as she read the last letter, dated only days before Amelia's disappearance. If something happens to me, tell our daughter I loved her more than anything. I hope she grows up strong, kind, and brave. Just like you. Logan turned away, his shoulders shaking with silent sobs. She was so close to coming back, he said, his voice raw with anguish. She was trying to protect us. Suddenly, Claire noticed a small key taped to the back of one of the letters. What's this? She asked, holding it up. Logan's eyes narrowed. It could be for a safe, he said. Let's see if we can find it. Their search brought them to a hidden panel in the study. Behind it, they found a small safe embedded in the wall. Using the key, Logan unlocked it, revealing a trove of documents and a sealed envelope marked for Logan. Inside was a handwritten note from Amelia, detailing David's embezzlement and the threats he had made against her. The final line of the note read, If you're reading this, I may not have made it, but promise me you'll fight for our daughter and protect our family's legacy. Logan clutched the letter tightly, his jaw set with determination. We have what we need, he said. David's lies end here. Claire placed a hand on his arm, her voice steady despite the tears in her eyes. We'll make sure her story is told, she said, and we'll honor her by building the legacy she dreamed of. With the evidence in hand, Logan and Claire prepared to confront the truth and to fight for justice for Amelia. The path ahead was uncertain, but together, they were ready to face whatever came next. Armed with Amelia's letters, financial records, and the journal, Logan and Claire returned to Ridgewood with a renewed sense of purpose. The truth about David's betrayal and Amelia's final days burned like a beacon, demanding justice. Logan knew it was time to confront not only David but also the Caldwell Enterprises board, the very people who had unwittingly enabled David's corruption. Logan called an emergency board meeting, ensuring that every key figure in the company would be present. The tension in the room was palpable as Logan entered, the sealed envelope and copies of Amelia's letters in hand. Claire stood beside him, her presence commanding respect despite her youth. Her quiet determination and striking resemblance to Amelia silenced any murmurings. David was already seated, his usual arrogance intact, but a flicker of unease crossed his face when he saw the documents in Logan's hand. "What is this, Logan?" he said, his tone sharp. "Another one of your dramatic stunts?" Logan ignored the jab, his expression calm but resolute. "This is about accountability, David," he said, his voice steady. "And about revealing the truth you've buried for 20 years. Logan began his presentation, laying out the evidence with precision. He detailed Amelia's discovery of David's embezzlement, her confrontation with him, and her subsequent disappearance. The letters, written in Amelia's own hand, were passed around the room, each word a damning testament to David's betrayal. As Logan spoke, Claire took the floor to read Amelia's final note aloud. Her voice trembled with emotion but grew stronger with every word. "If something happens to me, tell our daughter I loved her more than anything. I hope she grows up strong, kind, and brave, just like you." The room fell into stunned silence. Board members exchanged uneasy glances, their loyalty to David crumbling under the weight of the evidence. Finally, Harrison, one of the senior members, spoke. "David," he said, his voice grave, "is this true?" David's bravado faltered. "This is a gross misrepresentation," he said, his voice defensive. "I never intended for Amelia to disappear. She left on her own." Logan's eyes narrowed. "You coerced her into hiding with threats. You let me grieve for decades while you continued to profit from her silence. That ends now." Claire stepped forward, her gaze piercing. "You destroyed our family for the sake of your greed," she said. "And you'll face the consequences." The board voted unanimously to remove David from his position, citing gross misconduct and corruption. Logan announced that the evidence would be handed over to the authorities, ensuring that David would be held legally accountable. As security escorted David out of the room, his protests fell on deaf ears. With David removed from Caldwell Enterprises and his crimes exposed, Logan and Claire turned their focus to rebuilding the family's legacy. Amelia's story became a rallying cry for transparency and ethical leadership within the company. Together, they launched a series of initiatives aimed at restoring the company's integrity and giving back to the community. One of their first acts was the creation of the Amelia Caldwell Foundation, a charitable organization dedicated to supporting orphaned and underprivileged children. Its mission was deeply personal to both Logan and Claire, reflecting Amelia's spirit of compassion and her dream of creating a better world. The foundation offered scholarships, foster care support, and mentorship programs, ensuring that no child would have to endure the struggles Claire had faced growing up. The foundation's launch event was held in the Caldwell Estates Orchid Garden, now meticulously restored to its former glory. Friends, colleagues, and community leaders gathered to celebrate the occasion. Claire, standing beneath the garden's archway of blooming orchids, addressed the audience with heartfelt sincerity. "My mother believed in the power of love and resilience to overcome even the greatest challenges," Claire said, her voice steady. "Through this foundation, we honor her legacy by creating opportunities for children who need them most. This is not just about giving back. It's about ensuring that every child has the chance to thrive." The crowd erupted in applause, moved by Claire's words and her evident passion. Logan watched from the sidelines, pride swelling in his chest. For the first time in decades, he felt the weight of grief begin to lift, replaced by a sense of hope. At Caldwell Enterprises, Claire's presence revitalized the company. Her innovative ideas and commitment to ethical practices inspired the team, while Logan's leadership ensured stability during the transition. Together, they launched new ventures focused on sustainability and community impact, transforming the company into a model of corporate responsibility. Logan also took steps to repair the personal relationships that had been fractured by years of grief and isolation. He reached out to old friends and colleagues, rebuilding the support network that had once been the cornerstone of his life. The Caldwell estate, once a symbol of loss, became a gathering place filled with laughter, warmth, and new memories. As Logan and Claire worked to honor Amelia's legacy, they found solace in their growing bond. They often visited the orchid garden together, tending to the delicate flowers and reflecting on the journey that had brought them here. One crisp autumn afternoon, as they stood side by side, Logan turned to Claire with a soft smile. "You've become everything your mother hoped you'd be," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Strong, kind, and brave." Claire's eyes glistened with tears. "And you've shown me what it means to fight for family," she replied. "Mom would be proud of both of us." The orchid garden, bathed in golden sunlight, seemed to echo their sentiments. Each bloom was a testament to the love and resilience that had carried them through their darkest days. As they looked toward the future, they knew that Amelia's legacy was not just something to be remembered, it was something to be lived. Together, they had turned a story of loss into one of renewal, proving that even in the face of tragedy, love and hope could bloom anew. With the Amelia Caldwell Foundation thriving and Caldwell Enterprises on a transformative path, Logan and Claire began to focus on personal growth and strengthening their bond. The shared mission to honor Amelia's legacy brought them closer, but the emotional scars from years of uncertainty still lingered. They both knew healing would require time and intentional effort. Claire threw herself into her work at the foundation, spearheading initiatives that directly impacted the lives of orphans and underserved children. One program, in particular, stood out: Amelia's Scholarship Fund. It provided full educational support to foster children, from primary schooling to college tuition, ensuring they had the resources and encouragement to succeed. Claire spent countless hours visiting orphanages, listening to children's stories, and mentoring young girls who reminded her of herself. One day, during a visit to a Chicago orphanage, Claire met Ava, a shy 12-year-old with wide eyes and a knack for drawing. Ava had been in the foster system her entire life, moving from one temporary home to another. As Claire knelt beside Ava, admiring one of her sketches, the girl hesitated before speaking. "You remind me of someone," Ava said softly, her fingers nervously gripping her pencil. "Someone kind, like a mom." Claire felt a lump rise in her throat. She saw herself in Ava's uncertain gaze and resolved to ensure the young girl would have a future filled with stability and opportunity. That day, Claire arranged for Ava to receive a scholarship to pursue her passion for art. It was moments like these that solidified Claire's purpose, not just as a leader, but as a compassionate force for change. At Caldwell Enterprises, Claire's leadership began to shine. She introduced innovative initiatives, such as Orchid Connect, a digital platform designed to pair orphan children with potential adoptive families using virtual reality to simulate connections before adoption. The project combined advanced technology with empathy, creating a groundbreaking solution to a deeply personal issue for Claire. Logan, meanwhile, found himself transitioning into a mentor role within the company. Though still actively involved, he began focusing on nurturing young talent, sharing the wisdom he'd gained from decades of leadership. He also began reaching out to people he had distanced himself from during the years of grief following Amelia's disappearance. Former colleagues, friends, and even family members found themselves drawn back into Logan's life, helping to restore the vibrant network of support he had once cherished. On one crisp autumn morning, Logan and Claire spent time in the restored orchid garden. As they carefully tended the blooms, Logan turned to his daughter with a thoughtful expression. "You've brought new life to everything you touch, Claire," he said. "Your mother would be so proud." Claire smiled, her hands brushing gently against the petals of a newly bloomed orchid. "I couldn't have done any of this without you," she said. "You've shown me how to lead with love and determination." The garden, bathed in soft sunlight, stood as a symbol of their shared journey, a journey that had transformed their pain into purpose. As the months turned into years, Logan and Claire's efforts began to ripple outward, touching lives far beyond what they had imagined. The Amelia Caldwell Foundation became a beacon of hope for thousands of children, offering scholarships, mentorship programs, and foster care support across the country. Claire's passion and leadership made her a respected figure in both philanthropic and corporate circles. One of the foundation's most ambitious initiatives was the Amelia's Dream Program, which aimed to provide stable housing for foster youth aging out of the system. Claire personally oversaw the program, ensuring each housing project reflected her mother's values of warmth and compassion. The program's first success story came when Ava, the young artist Claire had met in Chicago, graduated from high school and received a full scholarship to study fine arts. Logan's pride in Claire only grew as he watched her flourish. At Caldwell Enterprises, he saw her bring innovative ideas to fruition, blending ethical leadership with forward-thinking strategies. One particularly successful project was Eco Orchid Solutions, a line of sustainable technologies inspired by Amelia's love for orchids. From renewable energy solutions to biodegradable packaging, the project became a symbol of the company's commitment to both the environment and Amelia's legacy. The culmination of their efforts came during the annual Legacy Gala, an event hosted by the Caldwell family to celebrate the foundation's achievements and raise funds for future initiatives. Held in the Orchid Garden at the Caldwell estate, the gala attracted influential figures from across the country, including philanthropists, business leaders, and former beneficiaries of the foundation. As guests mingled beneath twinkling lights strung between the garden's ancient oaks, Logan and Claire took the stage. Logan began the evening's address, his voice steady but filled with emotion. Tonight, we celebrate more than just success. We celebrate the love and resilience that made it possible. My wife, Amelia, believed in the power of kindness to change lives, and her belief has guided us through every step of this journey. He turned to Claire, his pride evident. And none of this would have been possible without my daughter, who has carried Amelia's vision forward with strength and grace. Claire stepped forward, holding a small silver locket that had belonged to Amelia. She opened it, revealing a tiny photograph of her mother on one side and an inscription on the other. May you always bloom where you are planted. This locket has guided me, Claire said, her voice resonating with quiet confidence. It reminds me that even in the darkest times, there's a light waiting to be found. My mother's strength and my father's unwavering love have shown me that the greatest legacy we can leave is one of kindness, resilience, and hope. As applause filled the air, guests were invited to plant small orchid seedlings in the garden, symbolizing their commitment to nurturing the values Amelia had embodied. The ceremony was both cathartic and celebratory, blending the pain of the past with the promise of a brighter future. That evening, as the last of the guests departed, Logan and Claire stood together beneath the starlit sky, surrounded by the garden's vibrant blooms. We've come so far, Logan said, his voice filled with quiet pride. And there's still so much more to do, Claire replied, her eyes shining with determination. But whatever comes next, we'll face it together. The orchids swayed gently in the breeze, their delicate petals glowing in the soft light. They were more than just flowers. They were living reminders of the love, resilience, and hope that had carried Logan and Claire through their journey. Together, they had built a legacy that would continue to bloom for generations to come. The Caldwell name, once tainted by scandal and loss, had become synonymous with compassion, innovation, and resilience. Under Logan and Claire's leadership, Caldwell Enterprises thrived not only as a business but as a force for good. The company's initiatives, ranging from sustainable technologies to community-driven projects, garnered widespread respect, transforming its reputation into a beacon of hope and ethical leadership. At the same time, the Amelia Caldwell Foundation expanded its reach nationwide. Its programs touched countless lives, creating opportunities for education, mentorship, and emotional healing. Claire's hands-on approach, combined with her personal connection to the Foundation's mission, inspired others to join the cause. Donors, volunteers, and beneficiaries alike found themselves united by a shared belief in the power of kindness and community. One particularly memorable moment came when the Foundation launched the Amelia Center, a state-of-the-art facility dedicated to supporting children aging out of foster care. The center offered vocational training, counseling, and transitional housing, ensuring young adults had the tools they needed to build independent lives. At the ribbon-cutting ceremony, Claire addressed a crowd of supporters and former foster youth. My mother taught me that love can overcome even the greatest challenges, Claire said, her voice steady but filled with emotion. This center is a testament to her belief in the strength of the human spirit. Here, we will create a future where every child feels valued and empowered. The crowd erupted into applause, and Logan watched with pride from the sidelines. The center was a tangible reminder of how far they had come, a symbol of Amelia's enduring legacy. In the months that followed, Logan embraced a quieter role in both the company and the foundation. He spent more time mentoring young entrepreneurs and tending to the orchid garden that had become the heart of the Caldwell estate. The garden, now a vibrant sanctuary, attracted visitors from all over the city, many of whom came to reflect on the story of love and resilience it represented. Claire, meanwhile, found herself stepping into the spotlight as a leader and visionary. Her innovative projects, like Orchid Connect and Eco Orchid Solutions, continued to thrive, garnering international attention. Yet, she remained deeply connected to her roots, often visiting orphanages and hosting events to ensure the foundation's mission remained personal and impactful. One such visit brought Claire back to Chicago, where she reunited with Ava, now a thriving art student and one of the foundation's most promising scholarship recipients. As they walked through Ava's campus together, Claire marveled at how far the young girl had come. "You've made me so proud, Ava," Claire said, her voice filled with genuine warmth. "Your determination and talent are an inspiration." Ava smiled shyly but confidently. "I couldn't have done it without you," she replied. "You gave me a chance when no one else did. I want to use that chance to make the world better, just like you do." Claire's heart swelled with emotion. Moments like this reminded her of the profound impact the foundation had on individual lives, a ripple effect that spread hope and transformation far and wide. Years passed, and the Caldwell legacy only grew stronger. Logan, now semi-retired, found peace in the rhythms of his quieter life. He often spent his mornings in the orchid garden, reflecting on the journey that had brought him and Claire together. The once imposing businessman had become a symbol of wisdom and grace, his life enriched by the relationships he had rebuilt and the love he had rediscovered. On one such morning, Logan was joined by Claire, who carried a small bundle of documents in her hands. "Dad," she began, sitting beside him on the garden bench, "I've been thinking about what's next for the foundation. I want to create something lasting, something that ensures Mom's vision lives on long after we're gone." Logan looked at her with quiet pride. "What do you have in mind?" he asked. Claire unfolded the documents to reveal plans for the Caldwell Institute for Resilience and Leadership, an initiative that would combine education, mentorship, and innovation to empower the next generation of changemakers. The institute would offer scholarships, leadership training, and a platform for fostering groundbreaking ideas in sustainability, technology, and social impact. "This isn't just about the foundation or the company," Claire explained. "It's about creating a legacy that reflects everything Mom stood for: compassion, determination, and the belief that anyone can make a difference." Logan's eyes glistened with emotion as he studied the plans. "Your mother would be so proud of you," he said. "And so am I. Let's make this happen, together." The launch of the Caldwell Institute became a defining moment for the family's legacy. Held in the orchid garden, the ceremony brought together leaders, scholars, and beneficiaries from all walks of life. Claire stood at the podium, her voice strong and confident as she spoke of the journey that had brought her here. "This institute represents not just a continuation of my mother's vision, but a promise to carry it forward," she said. "We are here because of her strength, her love, and her unwavering belief in the power of resilience. Together, we will create a future where kindness and innovation go hand in hand." As the crowd erupted in applause, Logan watched from his seat, his heart full. The journey that had begun with loss and uncertainty had transformed into one of hope and renewal. He knew that the legacy he and Claire had built would endure for generations, touching lives in ways they could only begin to imagine. That evening, as father and daughter walked through the garden, Logan turned to Claire with a smile. "You've done more than carry on your mother's legacy," he said. "You've built one of your own." Claire smiled, her gaze lingering on the orchids swaying gently in the breeze. "We've done it together," she replied. "And I know Mom is proud of us both." As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the garden in a golden glow, Logan and Claire stood together, united by the love and resilience that had defined their journey. Their story was no longer one of loss but of renewal, a testament to the enduring power of family, compassion, and hope. Together, they looked toward the future, knowing that the seeds they had planted would continue to bloom for generations to come.